And welcome to Madden and Benz, Unfiltered for this week. Tim Benz and Mark Madden with you. Glad that you're with us. Brought to us by Bella Construction with 27 years of experience, specializing in roofing, siding, windows, and doors. Their large purchasing power means unbeatable prices and top quality. For a free estimate, call 724-515-5163 or visit mybellaRoof.com. Bella Construction, where quality and affordability meet. The Mad Monday podcast post is up right now at Trib Live. We sort of purposely stayed away from talking about the playoff games because when Mark and I were speaking, actually Buffalo and Baltimore had just started. So, Mark, to kick off the Unfiltered stream today, let's talk about the championship games and what you saw in the divisional round.
Well, I think the funniest storyline coming out of the divisional round is that Lamar didn't blow the game. I was just watching Get Up on ESPN before we commenced with this broadcast, and I keep seeing Orlovsky and Greenberg. Oh, you can't pin this on Lamar. Well, I know Andrews dropped a pass and fumbled a ball, but Lamar committed 2 turnovers. One was a 10-point swing. They lost by 2. So, of course, you can blame Lamar. It's a quarterback's game. You can't publicize that matchup between Allen and Lamar as this big battle of the super heavyweight quarterbacks. And then when one quarterback comes up short, you say, oh, it's not his fault. It was absolutely 100% Lamar's fault, although you certainly can't discount Mark Andrews and his 2 miscues. It was almost like he was throwing the game.
Mark, it was kind of laid out that way, I think, in advance of the game. Who's it? Emmanuel Acho on the other network on FS1 laid the foundation for this exact conversation where he sort of preemptively said if the Ravens lose, everybody was going to go out and blame Lamar, sort of preemptively protecting him for it. But I don't know how that's any different than Allen. The same reaction would have happened if Josh Allen had lost the game.
Yeah, one of the quarterbacks was going to lose this game, was either going to make mistakes like Lamar did or not play quite up to the standard needed to win the game, as evidenced by not winning the game. I just thought the post game was just so funny. Like Josh Allen said that nobody gave the Bills a chance, said they were too small, blah, blah, blah. They sounded like Hines Ward.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when he would say that nobody ever gave him a chance, people thought the Bills were going to be really good, specifically because of Josh Allen, although I do think they kind of overachieved a little bit to this point. I mean, now they're better than we thought. They're legit. But at the beginning of the year, I think we thought they'd be a playoff team. I think we thought they wouldn't get over losing Diggs so easily. But anyway, the postgame by Allen made me laugh. The postgame by Lamar made me laugh when he went up there wearing the goofy, what are those things, those hoodies they wear over their heads, like the
Gators.
Under Armour things? He was still wearing that when he did his media. He swore like crazy because he was clearly rattled. And I also laugh when people talk about how much they love the snow games. I will say the games at Philadelphia and Buffalo were very exciting, but they were sloppier because of the snow. Now, if you prefer sloppy football, okay, I don't get that, but I can't make you like one thing or the other. I just wish every playoff game were played in a dome so it would accurately reflect skill sets. And maybe, I don't know if the snow affected a result yesterday, but affected the games.
Jayden Daniels, I know Colin Cowherd said that he's had the best rookie season of any quarterback ever. Do you think he has, or does he have to win in the NFC Championship game to differentiate himself from Roethlisberger, who lost in the AFC Championship game?
Gee, it never occurred to me to research the greatest rookie quarterback seasons before coming on this broadcast. Jayden Daniels is real good, and he gives them a legitimate chance to beat Philadelphia, especially at Philadelphia, where I feel like they have the worst home field advantage to everybody because the crowd can turn so easily. Plus, Tim, we have Jalen Hurts injured his knee. Maybe Kenny Pickett is quarterback. Oh, it would be more glorious than D-Day. Jayden Daniels is tremendous. No question about that. I think Detroit got kind of exposed, though. I think that guy's more blowhard than he is good coach, Dan Campbell. He always makes mistakes of bluster And I think that occurred a few times against Washington, although Washington was clearly the better team. I think Campbell was carried by his coordinators, and if they both depart, I'm not sure how good the Lions will be moving forward.
Is Mahomes too protected, even as opposed to the other really good quarterbacks in the conference in the league?
Well, those two calls were ridiculous. The one didn't hit him in the head, and the other one, I thought the two guys hit each other after Mahomes started his slide late. And I think it was reflected by D'Amico Ryans, what he said, what by C.J. Stroud, and what he said, you play everybody. You play everybody at Kansas City, implying the refs. I never thought till recently it was important to keep Taylor Swift involved. But now that Caitlin Clark's in the mix, oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really necessarily believe that the refs are in the bag or it's a fix or anything like that, despite what people suggest.
I don't think it's a preordained thing that's discussed, prior to the game. I just think they see something like that happen and go, oh, holy heck, it's Mahomes, and throw the flag.
There's just something about the way he plays, the way he runs, the way he carries himself, that even though he puts himself in similar harm's way to the way that Jackson and Allen and some other really good quarterbacks, Hurts does a lot of this too, even though he puts himself in harm's way like those guys do, they're so much more prone to throw flags on his behalf than they are the other guys.
Well, he's smaller, he's slighter, he's obviously arguably the best quarterback of all time. I think that all adds up.
And I think the other thing is he abuses the rule more than anybody. He slides later. He does the little dancey step on the sideline. He's guilty of that too, whereas the other guys just run for as far as they can. And if they get hit, and then they don't get the call or they do.
It's time to make quarterbacks into running backs once they pass the line of scrimmage. Once they pass the line of scrimmage, they should be fair game.
Oh, well, Jesus. Romo went so far as to refer to Lamar Jackson as precious during the course of the broadcast yesterday.
Yeah, I heard that. What did he mean?
He's too important. He's too important to be hit near the sideline, is I think what he meant by that.
Well, you see, I'm more old school. I understand the logic of protecting the quarterbacks, but I don't care if they get hurt.
Especially once they get out of the pocket. When they're sitting
once they pass the line of scrimmage, then they are trying not to protect themselves, but to add yardage to their team. So they should not be protected once past the line of scrimmage.
Well, we know this. Whoever is quarterback for the Steelers next year won't be worth protecting. And do you think it's going to be Russell Wilson? Do you think it's going to be Justin Fields? Or is it still TBA in your mind, Mark? A quarterback that was not on the roster this year?
I think it's Justin Fields, but boy, talk about not caring. I don't care. I think you look at Washington Saturday, pardon me. All it took was one 4-13 season, drafting a quarterback, new coach, new GM, and now they're in the conference championship game. But you know what's more important than Pittsburgh, Tim? It's more important in Pittsburgh that Coach T never has a losing season. Aren't we so proud of Coach T for never having had a losing season? I'd rather have Jayden Daniels or Justin Herbert or whoever you could get by tanking a season.
I want Art Rooney II to understand, because he seems, we talk about the phrase living in your fears all the time. Living in your fears is something that's always associated with Tomlin because he's spun that phrase so often. I think the owner is living in his fears. He's petrified for the reaction to a 6-10 season or a 5-11 season. I don't know how different it would be than what we've had over the last 8 years from fans who are entirely frustrated of not just finishing 9-10, but how they finish at 9-10, how they gag down the stretch of the season, how they're not entertaining in the way that they win a lot of their games early in the season when the offense is, quote, still coming together. The way they get to 9-10 wins often, to me, makes it feel like they're more of a 7 or 8 win team as it is.
Well, I just don't think Art's a very good owner. I think if you look at their record since Dan got feeble and handed the reins over and later passed away, it's not very good. I think they make the same mistakes over and over and over again. I just don't think he's a very good owner. And the next guy, Dan the second or whatever, his son, who's to say he'll be a good owner? I just don't subscribe to the notion that football knowledge is handed down through generations, that it's in a bloodline. And if you look closely at the Rooneys, the chief was a buffoon. He handled the team from 1933, the football ops, 33 to like 68 or 69, made the playoffs once, but somehow he's revered. Dan and Art Jr. were football geniuses, no doubt about that. Since then, I got my doubts.
I don't even know if it's so much about bloodline, Mark, as it is the sense that you can just pick it up through osmosis from being around, because that's ostensibly what they did when they gave Kevin Colbert's job to Omar Khan. And I don't know that he's picked up anything through osmosis. My hunch is that if Kevin Colbert was still in charge, they would have gone into the regular season with someone besides Calvin Austin as their number 2 wide receiver.
Well, I mean, they hired Omar Khan, and one thing I hate about this offseason, and really every Steeler offseason, we're going to say the same stuff over and over again. Now, there's certain stuff I'm going to say that nobody else does. One is Omar Khan shouldn't be the GM. He's a bean counter. He was the cap guy. He happened to be the guy waiting in line when Kevin Colbert quit, but he shouldn't be the GM. That should be a football guy. It should be Andy Weidel if you want to go in-house. But Omar Khan's a bean counter, and he proved it with the way he handled WR2.
I'll tell you one thing that Steelers fans have to get a grip on, too, and this is not just the fan base. Let me actually rephrase this. Probably more about the ownership, because I do think the fans actually might have a better sense of this than ownership does, management, front office. This notion of you just get in the tournament and you give yourself a shot, that's outdated. It doesn't work that way anymore, particularly in this era of the AFC. You can't just waltz in as the 6 or 7 seed and think you're going to upset your way to the Super Bowl. Like, I know they did that in 2005-06, but that was a team that was between coming off a 15-1 season that would go to 2 more Super Bowls before 2010. That was a team that had a Hall of Fame quarterback. That was a team that had everybody injured during a 3-game losing streak. And that was a team that only lost a very good AFC North by a half game due to a tiebreaker against Cincinnati. Like, that was a very above average 6 seed. That was a fluke, is what I'm saying. Now you got to go in likely as a division champ. You can't go on the road 3 times against those quarterbacks who are all going to be in the conference for at least the next 5 or 6 years and expect yourself to get to a Super Bowl.
Well, they wouldn't have to worry about having a chance in the playoffs, Tim, because they're not going to make the playoffs next year. I don't think. I think Cincinnati's going to jump above them if Burrow stays healthy. But you're right about all that. And if they were looking to win, see, they think they're looking to win. They think their outdated approach, and it's outdated in every way an approach can be, Tim. They think their outdated approach, get a shot in the playoffs and anything can happen. They really do believe that, and that's the problem. And that's why Mike Tomlin has won his last playoff game ever as the Steelers coach. It's why TJ Watt will never win a playoff game as a Pittsburgh Steeler. The biggest problem, as historically has so often been the case, the biggest problem with the Steelers is they don't recognize there's a problem.
Well, be careful what you wish for, Mark. Just like Andrew McCutchen said about the Pirates at PiratesFest this weekend. Be careful what you wish for if you ask for Bob Nutting to sell the team.
You know, it's sad what Kutch has become. Okay, and I understand he wants a job. He's getting $5 million, and he's washed up. He's hit his expiration date like that Mountain Dew at PiratesFest, and he'll take any paycheck he can get, to keep putting on a Major League uniform. I get that. But he's become a mascot. He's become a shill. He's become the old-timey nostalgia throwback guy who tries to prop up the notion that the Pirates matter in Pittsburgh. And I guess in an odd way they do, because their attendance is going to go up yet again this year because of the Skeens phenomenon. But Kutch saying he's going to take over the clubhouse. Kutch saying be careful what you wish for. Kutch saying David can beat Goliath. Tim, if Goliath played baseball, the Dodgers would sign him and then beat the Pirates. It's sad what Kutch has become, although I do get it. But he's a mascot. That's all he is a mascot.
Andrew McCutchen, the 6th pierogi. Is that what you're saying?
I think the pierogies probably contribute more to the overall atmosphere.
That's right, because everybody leaves after the 5th inning or whenever Skeens is pulled.
Let's face it, Tim, if Kutch got in the pierogi race, he can't run no more. He wouldn't win.
Jalapeno Hannah would outrun him on the warning track. How about the Penguins? They're going on the road now. This road trip started 2 games in the Eastern Conference. You had the Nedeljkovic. He should have had the goalie Howe hat trick. He should have fought somebody. And then you had the loss against Ovechkin and the Caps. Now they go on the road for 5 out west. They start things off against the Kings. The Kings have 14 wins on home ice. The Pens have 7 wins on road ice. Only the Blue Jackets have a lower win total away from home. So of the many issues facing the Penguins, playing away from PPG Paints Arena is one of them.
You see, I don't think there's anything to be divine talking about the Penguins, and where they're at this season. They're not going to make the playoffs, period. So the question is, when do you start trading guys? How do you dig your way out? Are they replenishing the farm system? How does Sid react to whatever has to be done? Or will they not do it because of how they're afraid Sid will react? There's just a lot of stories here, but none of them involve the potential for success this year.
How do you evaluate where the goaltending goes from here now that Jari's cleared waivers?
Actually, I'm not concerned about the goaltending. I think between Blomqvist and Marashov, the kid in Wheeling, who's only 20, I think they have a good potential tandem moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not – this is going to sound weird, but I feel better about it 2 years from now, 3 years from now than I do right now.
I just don't – right now is not relevant. I know Sid wants it to be. I know everybody wants it to be. Right now is not relevant. They're not making the playoffs, period. And the sooner we accept that, they accept it, the sooner we use the R word for rebuild – I'm not saying the happier everybody will be, because some people pointedly will not be, but that's how it is. No matter how much we want to act like it's not like I described, it is exactly like I described.
Do you think like Sid sort of has a sliding line of acceptance now at this point?
I don't know. I think Sid always believes they can win.
Yeah, I wonder where that line slides and where it stops, because I
think it only slides and or stops when it's mathematically impossible to not make the playoffs. I think that's how Sid is.
I still wonder, though, if they get to that point and the conversations are about Rust or Raquel, if he still balks at it because those are the guys that he plays with. Or if it comes down to Letang and Malkin, if he still balks at it because those are the guys he cares about.
They're not trading any of those guys, Tim, and that's the problem.
Yeah. So then, really, what are you going to get for anybody? Pedersen? I mean, he'll get you a mid-round pick, like a second or third round pick.
He'll get you a second-round pick, yeah.
All right, let's get to some comments here. We'll get to Eric. He says, Commanders go 4-13 and 23, draft Jayden Daniels, and now we're in the NFC Championship. It's as if occasional terrible seasons work or something. I understand why the conspiracy theorists look at the games in Kansas City and Houston and say the refs are on KC's side. While they do appear to benefit from officiating, do you think the masses are overreacting?
I don't think the masses are overreacting. I think those 2 roughing the passer calls were beyond absurd.
Yeah, I think there's a level of protection that's afforded to Mahomes that is similar to what we saw for Brady. And I think that's why people are reacting.
I think Mahomes gets protected even more. I don't recall any one call on Brady that was as absurd as either call that helped Mahomes, that protected Mahomes against Houston.
Well, you know what Brady used to get? Brady always used to get the glancing blow on the top of the helmet call. Like, he used to get that one all the time. And actually, Mahomes has gotten that too. The reason I think, Mark, you feel like you're seeing it more with Mahomes than Brady is because Mahomes get out of the pocket more.
You know what I would have done if I were Houston after the first roughing the passer call? I'd have teed off on Mahomes. I'd hit him high, hard, helmet to helmet. If they're going to call roughing the passer, then get your money's worth and maybe knock him out the game.
Now, what about this guy's point about the Commanders? That's sort of similar to something you said on the podcast, right?
The Steelers would rather preserve Coach T's record than go 4-13 and get Jayden Daniels.
Well, the great irony about it is those guys are now run by former minority owners with the Steelers.
Because they learned what not to do. Okay, let me ask you this, Tim. Say you went to Art II and said, listen, these are 2 choices. They're written in stone. You can go 4-13 and you will get a quarterback the caliber of Jayden Daniels. You absolutely 100% will. It won't be a risk. You're getting a guy that you know is going to be that good, win Rookie of the Year, win playoff games, yada, yada. or you can do it the way you've done it, go 10-7 and lose in the first round. He would absolutely pick 10-7. No question would he pick 10-7.
You know what the funny thing is about that is when they took Roethlisberger, they were essentially saying we're willing to think long-term and big picture because the most obvious thing to do at that point was to take the offensive lineman. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to take the offensive lineman from Arkansas. They had a team that was, the year before? 6-10. That had gone to the playoffs 2 years prior, had won one game and then lost with Tommy Maddox. But they were willing to wait because the big picture thinking was to get the quarterback then. And, that's the last time they've had to go through something like that. Now they're balking at the very notion.
Green Bay, you got to give them credit. They got guts. They picked Rodgers while they still had Favre. They picked Love while they still had Rodgers. They didn't care what the incumbent thought. And they never missed a beat for quarterback, ever.
This is what Chuck says. Lamar blew it in the first half. Thank you for reminding the buffoons at ESPN.
Yeah, I'm not sure they pay attention to me.
This guy says
I'll give you an example. Alex Smith, I didn't know he was on ESPN now.
Yeah.
But he was on this morning, and he was talking about how you can't blame Lamar. Well, of course the quarterback is going to say that. Same thing with Orlovsky. Of course the quarterback is going to say that. That's why we need less ex-athletes on Mike, but we're only going to get more.
This guy says they actually made moves and added to their receivers. They added Mike Williams. They added Ben Skoranek. Let's not get crazy here. I'm talking about
that guy's got to be kidding.
Pete says watching these games make you realize just how far off the Steelers are from the top teams.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it also makes you realize how far off their approach is.
The thing about how they're looking at the quarterback now, I mean, if you believe that it's an either-or situation, I think Jerry Dulac pointed that out, or words to that effect. But as we get, a week now away from them being out of the playoffs, it feels like their thinking is, again, just to get the most economical option at quarterback. If Fields asks for less, significantly less than Russ, they'll go for Fields. If Russ lowers his price so he's like 75 over 3 instead of 100 over 3, maybe they'll go back to Russ. That's not how the thinking should be at that position.
Tim, if you gave them a choice between 4-13 and Jayden Daniels or 10-7 and losing the first round, they would pick 10-7 and losing the first round. They are a poorly run football organization from top to bottom with an outdated approach and a stupid philosophy.
This guy says, why hasn't anyone been fired by the Steelers yet? Because there's only one guy worth firing, and they're not going to do it.
Who's the guy worth firing? Pat Meyer?
No, Tomlin.
Oh, right.
Right. Anybody else who gets fired, so what? I mean, they can make a cosmetic move if that makes you feel better, but that's all they would be doing. I mean,
everyone else who would get fired would be just the sacrificial lamb.
In a weird way, Mark, I sort of applaud them for not firing anybody because
I do too. Let me tell you, by not firing any coaches, you know what they're telling us? We're right
fine.
And go F yourself.
Right. Exactly.
That's what they're telling you. We are right and go F yourself.
Just plant the flag in the ground then if you're going to do that. This is what Richard says. Skeens is counting the days until he goes to a team that actually tries to win. Oh, no doubt about it. This is like purgatory for him.
No, you know what though? I thought about this. For a pitcher, especially a great one like him, you know what I mean? They're more inclined to focus on what they do on their day, period. How they, from start to start. I don't think for a guy like him, I don't think winning is unimportant. And I think the thought of pitching in big games someday, is something that would appeal to Skeens. But I think right now he's probably content with how it is.
RJ says, any truth that Mark was late to the after Christmas show and has been late before? Were you aware? Yes. Mark showed up even later than George Pickens did.
What after Christmas show? I don't get
No, he's joking. He's making a joke about Pickens showing up late for the Christmas game.
Yeah, leave the comedy to us, bro.
Although I will say this, Pickens has to go, right? I mean, there's no possible way to keep him because if you keep him, then you have to sign him. And if you sign him, I think that might be even worse than not signing him and bringing him back without an extension.
I think they are going to trade him, but we should keep in mind they are trading literally their only playmaker.
Yeah, and they're going to have to spend whatever, no, I shouldn't say whatever, but a significant amount of their trade or free agent capital on a wide receiver and at least one high pick when they have so many other needs.
Hey, Tim, they might go 4-13 next year by accident. It might happen
Well,
organically.
Yeah, no, I've talked about that. Like, we can criticize them for not rebuilding. Well, the rebuilding might happen whether they want to or not.
My biggest criticism of them next year will be if they go between 7-10 and 10-7. That is the mushy middle. That is useless.
Jeff says 2025 would be ideal year to tank since 2026 QB class would be strong. Well, that's what we just got done saying, actually, is you can call it tanking or you can just call it losing. I think they're just going to lose. I mean, I think the above 500 streak snaps this year, whether they try to do it or not. Like, it's just a matter of how far they let it sink and how desperately they cling to try to chase it when they're somewhere around, 6-8 or something along those lines late in the season.
You know where they're lucky is that the Deshaun Watson thing screwed Cleveland up so bad that the Steelers can't possibly finish last in the AFC North. They can't.
Richard added one thing that I missed here. The Pirates crying poor doesn't cut the mustard when other small market teams like Milwaukee and Kansas City consistently spend more money on payroll than the Pirates do.
I didn't hear the Pirates cry poor at PiratesFest. I just heard them lie about being interested in winning. And one thing that can't be underestimated, Tim, Nutting no-showed the Q&A like the hillbilly grifter he is. But Travis Williams, the CEO, and Ben Sherrington, the GM, they are complicit in this. They're not victims of the con. They are perpetrators of the con. Shelty's a stooge. He's like the carnival barker standing by the shell game. But Williams and Sherrington are complicit in this.
Well, what I would like to know is from some Pirates fans, and look, I'm not going to be one of those calling for a boycott or buying billboard space or anything like that. It's your money. It's your disposable income. It's your time. If you want to go watch baseball and buy tickets, go ahead and do it. I can't see why you would go to that Q&A with the intent of being lied to. Like, what would be the point of going there? Like, if you're a fan, like, what do you want to hear? Because it's not going to be true. You're going to be lied. It's like a political rally.
Tim, did you see? Oh, it's like a rally, all right. Did you see the guy who put up the billboards? He was the guy who tried to get the sell the team chant going, and only a couple people joined in.
I never heard it. I just saw a transcript of it.
And I guess he also handed out 200 free T-shirts that said "Sell the team." Well, I'm sure Nutting is going to sell the team now because, Tim, if billboards and a half-hearted chant and 200 free T-shirts don't intimidate a billionaire, what the heck is gonna?
All right, that'll do it for us. That'll do it for Madden Benz Unfiltered. We will be back next week. We'll talk about the Super Bowl matchup. You can listen to Mark today. He's on at 2 o'clock today, 2 until 6. Oh, Mark, do you have the speech ready to go? Are you still doing the speech?
Tim, I'm not going to give it away, but I got to tell you, I look at Pittsburgh sports, and right now, I do not have a dream.
This is Madden Benz Unfiltered and is brought to you by MyBelleroof.com.